Well, hello there, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the Social Factor.
A factor it is.
So, before we start, I have some things that, some changes that are coming to the show, that, I need to, discuss here. So, this is basically our last show on Spreaker. No, the Social Factor is not going away. We're actually going to be moving to a new, better platform. We are going to be moving to YouTube.
Yay!
I did announce several weeks ago that we were going to now had a YouTube account, that our episodes were going to be available on YouTube as well and stuff like that. And the last couple days I've been pondering, and I thought to myself, why not just move the whole show to YouTube?
That's awesome.
Because, I've gotten some emails the last couple days saying, hey, your credit card will be billed or whatever for Spreaker or whatever and all this stuff. I'm just like, why am I paying for this when we can just do it on YouTube for free?
We can? I didn't realize
that.
Okay.
So, we're going to be doing it on YouTube.
Yay!
Some of the benefits to YouTube, some of the things is that we can go as long as we want, even though we'll stick to 45 minutes.
Yeah, we can even go shorter if we have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, there's some changes. The show will... usually we always do a live show. The show will be a mix between live and recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Live and recorded. David did ask me a little while ago. He said, so are we going to actually full on edit the audio or go video, ditch just audio and go video too? And for now, we're going to still do the show in the same format. However, if down the road I'll decide to do video, then we will. But for now, what we're going to do is... Yeah, I'm sweating a little.
I wasn't commenting.
Oh. But for now, yes, this will be the last show on Spreaker. Next week, we'll be going live on YouTube.
Awesome.
And we'll do the next episode there. So, tonight, we are going to be doing Germany Part 2.
There's a lot of history there.
I know, right? Do you remember where exactly we left off, David?
Well, I kind of jumped around, and I think because it's very complicated during between the 10th and the 16th century, there's a lot of handing over from one family to another. From different tribes, the original tribes, to the Roman Emperor or the Roman papacy, and so it gets a little confusing and a little demanding as well, because there's so many different names that are being used and so many different expressions or examples of different tribes in different regions, that I think we need to generalize this. So it's a little, number one, we're not covering every century per show, because that's enough information there. So what I figure we would do is give a general consensus. It seems like we talked about Charlemagne last week, and he was really the first king. He was also an emperor who was given the emperor's crown by the Pope Leo the First. So, having said that, the Charlemagne and his family were actually known as the Frankish, or the Franks, and while they are Germanic, they covered most of what we know today as Germany. They also went into France, parts of Austria, and also parts of what we know as the Slavic region, such as Poland and Czechoslovakia and those other areas. So as time went on, other families kind of took over, and a lot of them were in the line of Charlemagne. Okay, it's like it seemed like it was lineage, just like other empires had family after family after family after family. And as the line of Charlemagne started expanding, it ended up going all the way into Spain, okay, and it went all the way into Italy, Italia, and it started, it hit Switzerland and all, and those locations are actually considered Germanic regions, okay, like Switzerland and like Austria and parts of the Czech Republic, what we know today as the Czech Republic, Hungary, all those regions were parts of the Germanic tribes. So what I like to do is kind of move it forward beyond the plague, which happened in the 13th century, and then it happened again in the 15th century, and so on and so forth, and move pretty much close to the 17th century. I think it's about time we get into more modern history. And why is it modern? Because if you look at the history of the planet, one century, it's really just a drop in the sea. Okay, so that's why I'm using that term. So let's see. All right. So let's go to. They call it the Winter King between 1619 and 1620. The king accepted the Bohemian throne, being crowned in Prague in November 1619, and his name was Frederick V, penetrating an extremely inflammatory act within the edgy community of German states. Okay, and Frederick, I've heard of him before. He was, of course, I believe he came from Bohemia or Habsburg, and the Habsburg family is the most modern, most famous family, second to the families of Charlemagne. Okay, and they kind of came out of nowhere at one point. I think their reign lasted a good 500 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and they became very influential in certain regions of Germany and also in other regions like France and stuff like that. So, as one of the German princes and as an imperial elector, and it was called the Elector Palatine of the Rhine, by popular demand in Bohemia, he usurped his lord's place. So Ferdinand is able to organize a powerful army against the Protestant. I'm sorry.
Our apologies.
No problem. Sorry, guys. So around that time, in between, this is the 17th century we're talking about. Martin Luther and the Protestant movement was in full swing. Okay, because it all started like in the 1300s, and then by the time like 300 years later, it became an epidemic in Europe. Okay, especially in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland.
Right.
Liechtenstein and those places also. The little places. Okay. So Ferdinand, he actually got an entire army together, and he kind of fought the Protestants, and the bulk of it comes from they call it the Duchy of Bavaria, which is now when you talk about the Bavarians, if anyone knows of Bavaria, they're kind of like their hub or their capital is considered Munich.
Right.
You've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
And Bavaria, especially for the people that are not fully aware of the German culture or the people and the history, Bavaria is the home of the Oktoberfest.
Ah, okay. the beer fest and
correct,
all that stuff.
But it has its own significance. It goes back to like before the Middle Ages.
You ever seen the movie Beer Fest?
Of course I have. How would I not see it? It's a good show, and you can tell everybody's American.
Yeah.
Although they had a few people that were actually German in the movie. All right, so
crappy German accents, huh?
Yeah. And then apparently, the Ferdinand was aligned with a Catholic line of the Wittelsbach dynasty. So that's the name of another family. Okay, and deeply hostile to the Protestant branch, headed by Frederick and the Palatinate. In return for his support, the Bavarian Duke Maximilian I is promised Frederick's hereditary land and a status as an imperial elector. Okay, so apparently it sounds to me that at that time in history in Germany, or it was in the German regions, and this is Bavaria we're talking about, that elector means someone that puts a vote in. Okay, like we have the electoral vote. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but to use the word elector means it's someone that gives a vote towards a particular person running, let's say, quote unquote, for the kingdomship, as a king or as someone wearing a crown.
Right.
Okay, so the issue decided in a single brief encounter. The Bavarian army, awesome, under Distinguished General Johann Zerklasse von Tilly, marches on to Prague. Now, at this point, you know where Prague is. Prague is the Czech Republic. So remember, this was about Bohemia at first, okay?
Yeah.
And so they moved quite a bit northeast and ended up in Prague. And the battle at the White Mountain to the west of the city lasted only an hour before the Protestant army gives way. The battle lasted 1 hour. Think about that. Now, mind you, this was the Catholic faith fighting against the enemy, the Protestants. Okay?
Right.
I guarantee you, they didn't stand a chance anyway. And when they say it only lasted an hour before they gave way, they ran as everybody else fell. So, and they were brutal. During the Reformation and everything of Europe, but between Germany, Austria, and these other places, it became an epidemic. It made its way to England, and then England actually adopted the Protestant faith under Henry VIII, okay, which was the father of Elizabeth I. Okay, so as we said, this issue. Let me see. I'm sorry. Right spot. On the evening of the same day, which was November 8th of 1620, almost exactly a year after his coronation, Frederick flees from Prague with his family. So apparently you have Frederick and you have Ferdinand. Okay, so these are two different individuals, and sounds to me that Ferdinand, so Ferdinand was going against another king, and Frederick ended up having to leave the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia, or what we know today as the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
His wife, Elizabeth, daughter of James I of England. So again, now you got the English crown involved, because they used to marry off people for diplomatic reasons.
Right.
Yeah. Basically, their brief reign causes Frederick and Elizabeth to become known as the Winter King and Queen. But unwittingly, they found a dynasty. A century later, their grandson becomes the King of Great Britain, also known as George I. That's pretty cool. So you have Ferdinand, or Frederick and Elizabeth, who actually had to flee Prague, okay, because Ferdinand was coming after them.
Yeah.
Which, and at this point it's a little confusing, because I'm thinking, when I read this originally, it sounded like Ferdinand was also a Catholic, but I guess not. He was supporting the other side. So he was probably wooed by the Protestant faith, because, they were anti-Catholic, they were kind of anti-corruption, they were anti all this other stuff.
Right.
And, which is funny, because George I, if I recall correctly, I believe that this was not long before Henry VIII, who started the Protestant Reformation movement, okay? About maybe 75 years before that.
Okay.
So he was, through Elizabeth, the daughter of James I of England, she was directly related to Henry VIII. She was like a cousin. Okay, so this makes sense that her grandson would end up going back to England and becoming king.
Right.
George I. But do you see the unique part about all this is the European royalty was so intermingled with so many different nations that this will lead to World War One at some point, and World War One was truly a family feud.
Right.
Okay, but we'll get to that in a little while. Okay. Let's talk about the Lutheran movement, because that was a big movement in Europe. So it all started in Germany, but it made its way, Lutheranism, okay, made its way into Scandinavia, okay. And as a Lutheran monarch, the King Christian IV, he had good cause to support Protestant states in northern Germany, okay. Under threat from the Catholic neighbors, he was also eager to keep Catholics away from the Baltic regions. Now, the Baltic, when you think of the Baltic, if you're thinking of like places like Hungary, Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, Moravia, leading into the eastern blocks. Okay?
Right.
So having said that, he has been promised to a subsidy by England. So again, England now is exerting is a reformation onto, and they're allying themselves with kingdoms in the north.
Right.
Like Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. Okay, and so this monarch from the Danish kingdom is now financially supported for him to spread Protestant Reformation pretty much throughout most of Scandinavia into the Baltic area. So it really was like a war against religion, or two different clashes between a more modern concept of the Christian faith versus the ancient concept, which was the Catholic Church.
Right.
And so the Catholics weren't going to have that. They were going to fight it tooth and nail. And so he's been promised a subsidy by England if he intervenes in Germany or in Germany's wars. So they're actually fighting wars over this between different states and different provinces and stuff like that. And as he is interested in extending his own territory southward, again, Germany south, not north.
Right.
His own territory to the estuaries of the Elbe and the Weser. These are two major rivers in the Germanic region.
Right.
In May of 1625, he marches into Germany. Now, being that he was a Dane, I think this may have started. Don't quote me, but this was the beginning of the 100-Year War. Okay. Christian IV, unskilled in an unskilled commander, and the misfortune to range against him the two most experienced generals of the age. Tilly commands the Bavarian army on behalf of the Catholic League, and to this day Bavaria is known as a Catholic state. So they've, like, between Austria and Bavaria, it's like all Catholics.
Well, I mean, between Austria and Bavaria, isn't that where like Rome and Italy and stuff is?
Well, Rome is actually a little further south. Italy. Rome is Italy. It's the capital of Italy.
Well, I know. That's what I'm
Vatican.
saying. That's why I said Rome and Italy, like,
True, but the difference between, like, let's say Germany.
Like Vatican City is, is inside of Rome. I mean, it's not technically declared part of Rome. It's declared its own, its own.
It resides in the middle of Italy, but the Vatican City is its own country within another country.
Exactly. Just like Washington D.C., it's its own state inside of a country. Even though like a lot of people think
it's actually a state within a state.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a state within a country.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a three.
Because a lot of people think like some people when they were like when I was younger, I thought that Washington D.C. was like a city inside of Maryland.
Yeah.
But then I learned, oh no, it's you know, it's its own, like, it's on its own, you know,
it's its own entity. Right?
It's its own entity. So it's basically like it's not even like Washington D.C., Maryland, United States. It's just Washington D.C., United States. It resides inside of another state.
And you know, it's funny is because when they first built that place, it was on top of a swamp. Okay, and we can get to that when we hit the United States, I think.
Yeah.
Just because that's his own history.
Right. Yeah.
But the long term, short term is that as we continue through the 17th century, you end up getting into what you call the 100-Year War between the Danes and the different, like, Germanic Germanic states. They're no longer they're really no longer tribes anymore. They're kingdoms. They've become kingdoms. And the Bavarian army was, of course, the front runner for the Catholic Church in that region. So let's move to the 18th century, because I kind of want to move on. We could go on for hours and hours and hours. I want to get more to familiar territory, okay? Because once you get into, you know, one particular century, and oh my God, I mean, look at this. You have the Augustus the Strong. Okay, so let's hit him. Okay, now Augustus the Strong of Saxony. Now we talked about the Saxons the last time, you know, and you know, they were pagans for quite a while until Charlemagne himself destroyed them, or they were either converted or destroyed. And again, that was the Catholic Church, you know, the Catholic faith, and governments that were in support of the Catholic way. It was a very rigid type of handling things. Okay, you either join us or die. And modern day speaking, we have the same with a lot of the fundamentalists out of the Islamic faith. It's become that way as well, especially in their home regions. Okay, so you're looking at a time in the 17th and 18th century that powerful neighbors of Brandenburg in northeast. Now, when you look at the map of Germany, it's what we call Prussia. You know, and when it gets into like the Napoleonic era and into the first part of the 20th century, going all the way into the 18th century, into the 19th century, and the 20th century, we call that region Prussia. At this time, it's not considered Prussia yet. Okay. So it starts dealing with Frederick Augustus I. He succeeded his brother in Saxony in 1694. 2 years later, when the Polish throne becomes vacant, apparently the king died, he throws his cap in the ring along with 18 others. He is elected, becoming Augustus II of Poland. Now, it's kind of unique to, you know, again, as I said, they were all intermingled, you know.
Right.
All the royalties were kind of, you know, you have one over here in Poland, Russia, you had them in France, Italy, Spain, you know. It's just crazy how this all worked, you know. And he was also known as Augustus the Strong, okay. By nature and opportunity, he converts to Roman Catholicism, and in doing so, loses his wife to win Poland. So this guy gave his wife up to become the king of Poland. Right. So Augustus soon sees a further opportunity to advance Saxon interest. So he's really true to the throne.
Yeah.
Okay? And by 1699, Augustus makes a secret alliance with Denmark and Russia. They used to be enemies of that region, of the we would call them Prussian region after that. And so then he decided to attack Swedish territory. So now he goes with Denmark, which obviously, you know, every nation had an enemy that was close by. The Danes probably didn't get along with the Swedes too well for a while.
Right.
Okay. And around the Baltic region. So again, the Baltics are being mentioned, you know, and his own target is Livonia, okay, which he intended to acquire for Saxony. So he's in Poland, but he's fighting for Saxony, for the Prussian Empire. Okay, and so he refuses to cooperate in the enterprise. His new Polish subjects refused to cooperate in the enterprise. In February of 1700, that's awesome, Augustus marches north with a Saxon army beside to besiege Riga. Now Riga, I remember, was part of Russia at one point.
I've never heard of Riga before.
Yeah, Riga actually was in a Russian territory. Yeah, Riga is.
Never heard of it.
Trust me, I know this because I had family in Riga
yeah.
at one point. So his actions launched the long Northern War against Sweden. But in spite of his own resounding name, Augustus the Strong more than met his match in 1700 in the young Charles the 12th of Sweden. So the Swedes kind of kicked their ass. Okay, and over the next 6 years, the victories of Charles the 12th over Augustus the Strong are devastating the Saxons and are driven back across the Daugava River in the summer of 1701. So he kind of went back with his tail between his legs. Okay. Ending their threat to Riga. Why don't you look up where Riga is located? Because I can't.
Where Riga is?
R-I-G-A.
R-I-G-A.
In the meantime, Charles the 12th reaches and enters Warsaw in May of 1702. Now,
I got it.
Okay.
It is the capital of Latvia.
Okay.
Latvia's
which used to be
capital.
part of the. In the future, would be the Soviet Union.
Set on the Baltic Sea at the mouth of the river Daugava. And it's considered a cultural center, and it's also home to many museums and concert halls. It's also known for its wooden buildings, Art Nouveau architecture, and medieval old town. It's a pedestrian-only old town. It has many shops and restaurants, and it's home to busy...
Stop. We're getting into modern versions here.
Oh!
Yeah, you're describing current places to go to. And what it's famous for now.
Oh,
we want to stay within the
right now it's this tiny little area that is
a part of Latvia.
It borders the ocean, the Gulf of Riga, but which kind of goes.
Is that a red or black sea?
This is the Baltic Sea.
The Baltic Sea. Okay, all right. So that's why Sweden probably at that time had sovereignty over some of those parts.
Yeah, and if it's to the south of Estonia or to the north of Poland, to the northeast of Poland.
Gotcha. Which is funny because it ends up getting into Charles the 12th reaches and enters, of course, Warsaw in 1702. He defeats Augustus 2 months later in the battle further south in Poland at Glizau. Okay, Glizau. Those darn names. And in 1704, Charles persuades the Poles to depose Augustus. You know what the word depose means?
Depose?
Yeah.
No.
To unseat.
Okay.
Basically, like take away his crown. Okay?
Right.
And elects in his place a Polish noble. Oh, I heard of him, Stanislaw the First. So the local.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he ends up fighting the Ottoman Empire.
Okay.
In 1706, Swedish king completes the humiliation of Augustus by marching into Saxony to impose a treaty signed at Altramstadt. Okay, or State, actually, is what they say, and it's a city in Germany, in Saxony, which is Prussia. Augustus later recovers his Polish throne in 1709, but his interest remains in Saxony, where he is turned Dresden. Dresden is a famous city in what they call East Germany back then.
Okay.
Well, actually, it would be modern day East Germany, but again, we're talking about the Prussian region.
Right.
Into one of Europe's most beautiful cities, much painted later in the century. by Bernardo Bellotto, a famous Italian artist. Here, Augustus commissions an early Rococo palace, the Sfinga, designed by the court architect M.D. Okay, we can't get past this. In 17, so this great revolutionary, awesome piece of art, this palace, okay, is built in 1711 and through 1720 restored after bombing, and the house is dressed in the art gallery. So they're talking bombing in World War II. So we're going from 1720 to the time after 1945.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's go. Okay, here we go. The Prussian machine. Again, Prussia. Remember I told Prussia.
Yep.
Between 1701 and 1740, new dignity achieved in 1701 by the Hohenzollern as king in Prussia is one part of the reason for their growing prestige and power during the 18th century. Their underlying strength derives from reform of administration and the army undertaken by Frederick William, also known as the Elector of the Brandenburg from 1640, known as the Great Elector. Okay. Now Brandenburg is like, I believe it was the capital. Brandenburg is Berlin. Okay.
Yeah.
So it became the capital of Prussia already. Okay.
Okay.
And continued by his son and grandson, the first two Prussian kings. Now the Prussians probably influenced German history the most in modern history, because the German army they were modeled when they finally unified. They became in 1866, by the way. It was all of Germany between the military and their government was based on the Prussian Empire.
Right.
Let's see. So so their underlying strength derives from the reform of the administration and the army by Frederick William. Okay, we already talked about that. And it continued. Okay, already got that. Sorry. Frederick William's internal policies has two main features. He established a permanent system of taxation, thus removing from the Estate General their main source of power. And he spends a large slice of the resulting revenue on the standing army, and the Prussians were amazing for the era. They're the ones that ended up saving the British from Napoleon. Okay, this combination of an absolute monarchy was a large and efficient army becomes characteristic of Prussia, and they were very well trained. They were very disciplined soldiers.
Right.
By the time of the Great Elector's grandson, Frederick William I, the Prussian army amounts to 80,000 men, consisting of 4% of the population. For that era, it was a lot of people.
That is decent. Yeah.
The system devised from keeping this many men under arms makes possible maintenance of highly trained citizen army without damage to the economy. So a lot of these people were volunteers. So like modern day National Guardsmen.
Pretty much, yeah. National Guardsmen don't get paid?
No, they do.
Oh, okay.
But the thing about the National Guard started off, they were actually our first army. Did you know that?
No.
Alright, we'll get into the history of America a little later.
Let me guess, self-formed militia that eventually...
Well, the National Guard derived from the militias.
That's what I'm saying, like a self-formed militia that eventually the United States actually decided to adapt.
Correct, and a lot of them were indoctrinated into the regular army once the war was over.
Okay.
Once the colonial military.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're gonna
get to more of that with the United States history.
Exactly.
We get
Half the army is made up of foreign mercenaries. Okay, so they actually were hiring people.
Okay.
The other half is a shifting population of peasants from Brandenburg and Prussia. Each peasant is drafted into the army, so it's like like a draft, like conscription. That's what they used to call it. As a young man, but after completing his training, he goes home to his everyday work for 10 months of each year. Nobles are expected to serve their turn in the army as well, but the mercantile classes are exempt. So these are like, you know what a mercantile means?
Never heard of it.
Merchant rate.
But it sounded like that.
It is a merchant rate. The people that are specialized in certain, like carpenters and other things like that.
Right.
By means of tightly... How are we doing on time here?
We are at 35 minutes.
Okay. We got another 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in the 18th century, the dominant factor in the 18th century Germany is undoubtedly the emergence of Prussia as the main rival to Austria. Now, Prussia's up here, Austria's way down here.
Right.
Okay. Which has long been the leading states within German Empire. Now, it's kind of funny, when you talk about Austria, before it became its own nation, it was actually part of Germany.
Oh.
Yeah. And when it became its own nation, Bavaria actually would actually at one point, when the wind changed for a little while, Bavaria would be part of Austria.
Yeah.
But as the borders grew and Germany exerted its, especially after it became Germany, exerted its power, and they kind of like controlled that border area, okay? And
Right.
Bavaria stayed German. And and again, if you think of Austria and Germany, they were siblings because they used to be part of each other.
Yeah.
All right. So Prussia grows in status for several reasons. Through Frederick the Great's seizure of the rich province of Silesia, through the personal prestige acquired by Frederick himself, and through the vast gain of territory and the successive partitions of Poland. And if you ever talk to a Polish person, they will always tell you that they're very weary of the Germans because parts of Poland used to belong to Prussia. Okay, and often certain regions of Poland were fought over by the Prussians and the Polish armies. Okay. But certain other states can also be identified at this time as likely players in the struggles which will eventually lead into the 19th century to unite Germany. Okay, so we're gonna stop at that and actually go to the unition, okay, of Germany, 19th century, baby. That's awesome stuff. So we're going to move over to the 19th century, and we're going to talk about Napoleon, because 1805 was a big year for the French. When Russia and Austria declared war on Napoleon in 1805 in what they call the Third Coalition, okay, because it was England, I think it was, let me see, okay, here it goes. He is able to find allies in Germany who are eager to see Austria's power reduced. So at this point, I'm thinking they were talking about Napoleon because Germany was not united at this point, so different states would sometimes ally with enemy states to another state, okay, because they were enemies, like the Hessians and Bavarians, and you had the Hessians and you had the Schwabish people. So Prussia remains neutral, but Bavaria and two other territories in southwestern Germany, that's the Hessians, okay, come in on France's side. So part of that was because Napoleon actually conquered those regions. Right. So they kind of had no choice. So yeah, that kind of made me feel good because that's my home region. All right. Their region sees the first encounters in this new phase of war. Moving fast along the Danube, Napoleon gets between the Austrians and their approaching Russian allies. In October of 1805, he surrounds the Austrians at Ulm. Okay, Ulm is actually part of Germany, but it's in the southern region of Germany, And the Austrians apparently was border region because that's where a famous man by the name of Albert Einstein was born.
Yep, Albert Einstein. Yep.
And so in October,
You don't just say that's where a famous man named Albert Einstein was born. You just blatantly say that's where Albert Einstein was born. Because come on, let's be honest, who doesn't know who Albert Einstein is?
That's because he's famous.
Yeah, that's where a famous man whose name is Albert Einstein was born.
Okay, stop giving me a hard time. More than 50,000 troops are captured with minimal French losses. So at this point, it was not a good battle. And I gotta tell you, a lot of the Hessians were mercenaries. So the French reached Vienna. Ooh, they hated that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the Austrian army.
4 minutes.
Gotcha. And so eventually, on November, they entered the city unopposed, which means it's like the French. They quickly move on, pursuing a joint Russian and Austrian army into Moravia.
By the way, you don't have to rush your words because we're not going to be cut off at 45. Don't worry.
Okay. They eventually encounter places on December 2nd in Austerlitz, which is in Austria. The Allied army, under the command of the Russian general Kutuzov, outnumbers the French by a wide margin, 90,000 to 68,000. That's a really wide margin. In spite of this, the day goes decisively to the French. This is when Napoleon was hot. I mean, we're talking this man was able to run over everybody. He went to Egypt, he went to Spain, he went to Germany, or parts of modern day Germany, and Austria. He kicked ass. I mean, he ruled my region.
Yeah.
Hessen was under French rule for like 10 years.
Right.
So the victory ends any immediate threat to Napoleon from the Third Coalition. It's almost like World War II, the Allies versus the Axis.
Right.
And Napoleon is the Axis.
Yeah.
Okay. The Russians limp back home after agreeing to a truce. Okay. And the Austrian Emperor Francis I signs a peace treaty with Napoleon at Pressburg on December 26th. All right. So then we have the Confederation of the Rhine between 1806 and 1807. The simplifying of Germany's feudal patchwork. France takes advantage, and it began in 1801. And the understanding is that German rules was lands west of the Rhine will receive compensation elsewhere. This is to be provided from the many ecclesiastical territories. Now, ecclesiastical territories means like part of the Roman Empire type stuff. Ecclesiastical. And small imperial cities in the fragmented Holy Roman Empire. Wow.
Alright.
Too weak to resist their forcible redistribution among the large players. The commission is set up to consider the precise allocations, and it is proposed to new owners. 112 previously independent territories are presented and accepted in 1803. So this is starting to go towards the unification at this point, okay? Now,
leave it there for next week, or?
Yeah, we're going to stop here. It's going to be, the next session is going to be Deutscher Bund and Zollverein. So that means that the German federal government, okay, and also taxation and border control.
Okay.
That's what that word Zollverein means, border control.
Okay. So next week we will do Germany Part 3. Once again, we are leaving Spreaker. We are going to YouTube. And we'll explain that more in the again in the next episode, because next episode we do will be on YouTube.
Excited.
Yep. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/The Social Factor Podcast.
Right.
And
we are all good to go. You guys have a good week.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Ciao.